In the interest of national dignity and in accordance with the Crown's duty to the next generation, His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, William, affirms the appointment of Her Royal Highness, the Princess of Wales, Catherine, as guardian of royal succession for Master Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor and Miss Lilith Diana Mountbatten Windsor. Issued from Buckingham Palace at precisely 7:46 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time on the 4th of February, 2026, the Royal Household Statement marked one of the most consequential institutional repositionings in modern royal history, surpassing even the constitutional fallout of the 1936 abdication crisis. With these words, the British monarchy formally placed the children of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle under royal custodial oversight. The move was not triggered by a single scandal, but rather a carefully documented series of breaches, legal conflicts, and a perceived erosion of duty by the children's biological parents. The appointment of Princess Catherine as the legal guardian was not made lightly. According to internal records, the process unfolded over 7 months of confidential assessments, psychological consultations, diplomatic briefings, and a final legal review chaired by Prince William, not King Charles, whose role in the decision was limited to formal ratification and Privy Council oversight. What made this decision exceptional was not only the high-profile individuals involved, but the multi-jurisdictional, constitutional, and reputational stakes surrounding the two children, who until now had existed at the collision point of monarchy and celebrity brand. The immediate catalyst was Meghan Markle's appearance in Dubai on January 24 at the Royal Women's Empowerment Forum held at Burj one of the most politically scrutinized venues in the Gulf region. According to the event transcript reviewed by royal intelligence attachés, Markle referred to herself as the mother of the next generation of royal changemakers without once mentioning Prince Harry, nor acknowledging the current legal guardianship status of her children. More critically, Meghan wore a pair of diamond earrings gifted to Queen Elizabeth II by the Saudi royal family. In 2014, a move seen as both symbolic and provocative given that the use of royal-owned or state-gifted items is tightly restricted under the title usage memorandum signed by Meghan and Harry in July 2025. Behind her, a large screen bore gold-lettered text referencing the names of Archie and Lilith as part of a vision for global youth legacy, a brand initiative later revealed to be linked to her upcoming memoir and lifestyle enterprise. According to an internal GCHQ diplomatic report, the event also featured unauthorized marketing collateral displaying the UK royal crest, the HR designation, and QR-coded sign-up links for commercial updates to Meghan's branded California Royal Kids platform. This was not just a breach of etiquette. It was a violation of sovereign confidentiality, contravening the 2025 memorandum's clauses on international title restraint and commercial decoupling from royal minors. Between January 18 and January 30, Prince William's office attempted 3 separate communications with Prince Harry. A January 18 private call routed through Montecito Security was ignored. A January 25 diplomatic cable via the British Consul General in Los Angeles went unacknowledged. A final legal packet hand delivered on January 29 was never signed for. Meanwhile, verified images placed Prince Harry alone in Las Vegas, attending a cybersecurity round hosted by a former Invictus Games sponsor. According to media liaison, he declined all press engagement and appeared emotionally detached. An internal royal advisory report labeled Harry's state as disoriented, unwilling to engage in urgent family discourse. These failures of communication forced the Crown to initiate the Royal Guardian Declaration, an extraordinary move resting on 3 foundational legal instruments. Succession Clarity Protocol ratified January 2026 requires continuous royal oversight for any minor in the line of succession under age 16 if evidence of parental misconduct emerges. Legacy Protection Clause codified 1937 invoked only once before. It enables the Crown to assume partial custodial control in conditions of crossbar displacement, neglect, music, or institutional reputational harm. Royal Child Welfare Oversight Act enacted in 2024 created jointly with the Home Office and Department for Education, allowing sovereign intervention in custodial disputes involving royal minors and commercial interference. On January 31, all 3 were invoked in a sealed legal submission to the Family Division of the High Court of Justice filed by Lord Pembroke on behalf of the Sovereign Circle. Key to the filing was a 4-month investigative dossier compiled by Princess and her Office of Royal Protocol. The classified document reviewed in a closed-door session at Clarence House on January 27 catalogued 17 instances of unauthorized title usage by Meghan Markle across speaking engagements, clothing lines, and online campaigns. 6 commercial brand collaborations that directly referenced Archie or Leet without institutional approval. 3 testimonies from former ROYALS staff alleging neglectful delegation of child care and emotional instability within the home. 2 flagged payments to unvetted California-based child agencies with no registered compliance in either UK or US frameworks. During the session, Anne's words were direct and devastating. These children are not accessories. They are not stepping stones for public redemption or private wealth. They are Windsor, and the Windsor shall reclaim them. This singular quote became the rhetorical spearhead used to justify Catherine's appointment and deflect early legal challenges from Meghan's California-based legal team, which was already preparing statements condemning the move as maternal eraser through legacy law. Yet, inside the palace, the atmosphere was not vindictive. It was clinical, somber, and legally structured. The urgency, officials claimed, came not from scandal management, but from child protection, ethics, and long-term stability. The decision to appoint Princess Catherine as guardian of royal succession was not driven by symbolism, sentiment, or personal affection. It was a strategic and deliberate institutional act underwritten by law, psychology, and legacy preservation. Within the palace, the transition had been quietly engineered over several months through a confidential task force chaired by Prince William and reviewed by Princess Anne. According to an internal memo circulated to the Sovereign Circle on the 10th of January, 2026, Catherine was described as emotionally balanced, institutionally aligned, and personally invested in the long-term well-being of the Crown's youngest heirs. This was no ceremonial title. The Guardian's responsibilities were vast educational oversight, legal interface, psychological stabilization, and cross-spur coordination. Her blueprint, known internally as the Catherine Doctrine, was a phased intervention model developed in collaboration with 2 UNICEF Child Development Advisors, AK-based trauma psychologists with expertise in transatlantic custody disruptions, former aides to Queen Elizabeth II, consulted on legacy transmission for displaced royal minors. At its core, the plan centered around 3 pillars: educational stability, emotional rehabilitation, institutional continuity without exploitation. The education track was perhaps the most immediate concern. A sealed spreadsheet submitted to the High Court showed that between June 2024 and January 2026, Archie had been enrolled in 3 separate tutoring programs, none of which lasted more than 12 consecutive weeks. Lilith had no verified preschool enrollment past September 2025. Under Catherine's plan, Archie would be registered in a dual-track bilingual program, UK, music, and Canada-based, by March 2026. Leet would begin foundational education in the UK by September 2026. Both children would rotate seasonal residencies between Windsor and Victoria, British Columbia. Social integration would be facilitated with children of non-royal civil servants and diplomatic families intentionally shielded from media contact. This framework aimed to rebuild identity and security through structure away from cameras and away from narratives not their own. Perhaps the most controversial clause of the Catherine Doctrine was the Royal Child Content Moratorium, a legally enforceable ban on all commercial or media use of the children's names, likenesses, or voices filed with the UK Intellectual Property Office and mirrored in US cease and desist letters. The moratorium prohibits production of documentaries, podcasts, or books featuring the children, monetized images on social platforms, use of their identities in promotional speaking engagements. Crucially, the ban extended not only to Harry and Meghan, but also to any third-party media entities that had previously entered non-disclosure negotiations with the Rule or its affiliates. A February 5 bulletin from the Palace's legal counsel confirmed that formal notices had been delivered to Netflix, Spotify, Penguin, Random House, and Hulu, warning of potential violations based on preliminary contract disclosures. To fund this reintegration, the Sovereign Circle approved the Windsor Child Continuity Trust, an independently audited account seeded with £12 million from private royal reserves, not from the sovereign grant. The trust will support all educational expenses through 2040, psychological care, and travel safety logistics, legal representation, and any future challenges to custodial authority. It is to be managed jointly by the Duchy of Cornwall and a family law accountant with reports submitted annually to the Lord Chamberlain. Despite media speculation, sources close to Kensington Palace insist that Catherine harbors no personal animosity toward Meghan or Harry. Her goal, they say, is simple: to remove children from a narrative battlefield they never chose. Princess Anne reportedly said during a strategy session at Windsor, "We are not reclaiming power. We are reclaiming responsibility." Inside Windsor Castle on the 18th of December 2025, a conference room normally reserved for ceremonial briefings was converted into a financial war room. Seated around the table were representatives from the Royal Household Legal Office, auditors attached to the Sovereign Grant and Senior Home Office Child Protection Liaison. At the head of the meeting sat Prince William. The session had one purpose: a red flag audit of Archewell Foundation subaccounts that had been quietly commissioned after financial disclosures raised irregularities earlier that autumn. The figures were unsettling. Between February and October 2025, Palace auditors tracked 1.2 million routed into accounts labeled media positioning and visual storytelling of minor heirs. Within that sum, £314,200 was tied to consultancy contracts preparing streaming pitches, one of which carried a working title that immediately alarmed officials. Archie and Lilith, music, California Royals drafts attached to the invoices outlined episodic arcs, brand partnerships, and merchandising possibilities. One slide-stamped confidential phase, one proposed heritage-driven youth storytelling with projected seven-figure sponsorship revenue by 2028. According to two people present, William shut the presentation down within minutes. "We are not shareholders in a reality franchise," he said. "We are custodians of legacy." That sentence, later circulated in briefing notes, became the ideological boundary for everything that followed. Further forensic analysis revealed 6 PR retainers paid to firms in Los Angeles, New York, and Toronto totaling £726,000 for what invoices described as sentiment monitoring tied to minor-related narratives. Travel records uncovered more anomalies. 180,000 in first-class flights between 2023 and 2025, many logged as solo executive travel rather than family movement. Security payments routed through private vendors without reciprocal UK accreditation. Gaps in verified school tuition receipts from July 2025 onward. None of these alone proved wrongdoing. Together, Palace lawyers argued they demonstrated a systemic commercial framing of two children who remained in the royal line. The Windsor audit was reinforced weeks later by sworn testimony gathered by Princess Anne's office from a Canadian child development advisor who had observed Liliette during a brief Vancouver stay in July 2025. The advisor's memorandum, attached as an annex to the High Court filing, used unusually blunt language: emotional inconsistency, dislocation anxiety, curated public identity framing inconsistent with age-appropriate development. The report concluded that prolonged exposure to branding activity posed material psychological risk. That assessment pushed William to escalate the matter beyond financial oversight and into custodial architecture. By the 10th of January 2026, Kensington Palace had authorized Catherine to convene her own independent working group. Within 10 days, her team produced a custody transition blueprint that included educational stabilization protocols, media blackout clauses, and the creation of an independent trust administered through the Duché of Cornwall. Across the Atlantic, Meghan Markle was preparing a counter-offensive. On January 12, ROYALS Legal circulated preservation notices to major U.S. networks, warning that any cooperation with royal intervention could be construed as extrajurisdictional interference. Simultaneously, publishers received early promotional packets for a memoir titled The Crown Behind the Crib. Marketing copy framed the project as a mother's fight against monarchy-driven eraser. To Palace strategists, the messaging confirmed their fear. The custody dispute was being prepositioned as narrative warfare. William instructed his advisors to keep the UK filing forensic rather than emotional. "We win this on paper," he insisted, "not in outrage." The decisive moment arrived on the 3rd of February, 2026, when internal ROYALS emails were anonymously leaked to 3 London law firms. One exchange allegedly written by a senior strategist read, "The key is to position the children as aspirational without violating title boundaries, brand them as heritage adjacent." Within hours, the correspondence was authenticated by metadata specialists retained by the Palace. To William's legal team, the language was devastating. It did not speak of parenting. Music. It spoke of product architecture. By the evening briefing at Kensington Palace, the conclusion was unanimous. The Crown could no longer argue merely for oversight. It had to argue for enforceable guardianship. At precisely 4:12 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time on the 1st of February 2026, a sealed courier departed Buckingham Palace under escort and delivered a 47-page legal dossier to the Family Division of the High Court of Justice in London. Inside were 3 sovereign instruments invoked simultaneously: the Legacy Protection Clause, the Royal Child Welfare Oversight Act, the newly drafted Lilith Protocol, a bespoke framework designed to protect royal minors from foreign commercial exploitation filed by Lord Pembroke on behalf of the Sovereign Circle. The document called for permanent custodial oversight of Master Archie and Miss Lilith Diana to be placed under Princess Catherine's guardianship. The RIT did not seek immediate relocation of the children, but instead requested primary institutional authority, granting Catherine legal power to control academic placement, healthcare provider selection, travel clearance, approval of any commercial or media appearance. Simultaneously, the filing demanded that Meghan Markle comply with a court-approved royal maintenance and responsibility schedule outlining financial and behavioral obligations as the biological parent. The schedule was modeled on post-divorce Crown family settlements and demanded quarterly disclosure of all income streams tied to the children's names or likenesses. Immediate cessation of merchandising or media projects involving Archie or Leet, annual contributions of no less than £1.6 million to a protected welfare trust. Retroactive reimbursement of £842,000 for child-related expenditures reallocated to PR and legal firms between 2024-2025. Failure to comply would trigger freezing of UK-based assets. Reciprocal enforcement petitions in U.S. courts. Invocation of the HEG Convention on the Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction 1996 revision to recognize and enforce British custodial decisions across jurisdictions. Arwell Legal filed an emergency application with the Superior Court of California requesting declaratory relief. The filing asserted that Archie and Lilith were habitual residents of California. Meghan held full maternal custody under California Family Code Section 3002 and 3020. The Crown's actions constituted constitutional novelty disguised as policy. Accompanying affidavit included signed statements from former household staff confirming the children's continuous residence in Montecito over the preceding 24 months. The argument was clear. Meghan's legal team sought to preemptively block UK rulings by framing the dispute as a domestic custody issue. While legal teams battled in courts, Meghan's PR advisors launched a parallel campaign. Coordinated statements were delivered to CNN, The Guardian, Music, and Vanity Fair, branding the palace's intervention as a coordinated institutional campaign to marginalize a mother of mixed-race royal heirs. The phrase maternal eraser appeared in over 48 media headlines within 72 hours. However, while emotionally resonant, the media narrative began to crack beneath the weight of new disclosures. A confidential review conducted by the UK Child Welfare Commissioner shared with the Home Office and included in a High Court amendment detailed major financial inconsistencies in Archwell's reported spending on child welfare. Key findings included no tuition receipts from accredited schools, over £700,000 paid to media consultants for child-related publicity strategy, no health insurance coverage linked to verified providers for the children between October 2025 and January 2026. At the urging of Princess and Anne with the full support of William and Sophie, the palace filed a parental responsibility compliance order under the HEG Convention allowing temporary enforcement of UK guardianship in U.S. courts pending judicial recognition. This motion, dubbed internally as the Arch-Leak Clause, drew strong legal weight from its supporting documentation, especially the leaked Archwell email that characterized the children as heritage-adjacent assets. Anne's summary submitted with the motion struck a tone both restrained and decisive. Repeated attempts to commercialize the identity of royal minors without institutional authorization constitute material risk to their welfare, security, and legal standing. Within hours, 3 international law firms based in Toronto, Geneva, and The Hague submitted amicus briefs supporting the Crown, emphasizing the global precedent at stake in protecting minors exposed to sovereign identity manipulation. While Catherine remained publicly silent, consistent with the palace's instruction to emphasize protection, not conflict, it was Duchess Sophie who quietly coordinated much of the cross-border compliance effort. Internal memo confirmed that Sophie had liaised directly with the UK border agency, drafting contingency protocols for emergency repatriation should court rulings in California become non-compliant or obstructive. Within palace circles, her work was described as surgical. She was not merely a supporting royal, but an operational core in the Crown's legal apparatus. For nearly 6 weeks, Prince Harry remained absent from the proceedings. No formal filings, no public statements, and most strikingly, no entry of legal representation into the High Court of Justice in London. His name appeared only in footnotes and legal notations, not in defense. But silence is not absence. It is sometimes a scream too quiet to hear. A private encrypted message was received at Kensington Palace. Its sender, Prince Harry. The recipient, his brother, Prince William. The content, according to 2 sources briefed on the communication, was neither combative nor apologetic. It was fractured, unsure. Harry reportedly wrote, I don't know who I'm supposed to be anymore. I never thought I'd be outside the family watching it all through glass. I miss my kids, but I don't know what to do that won't make it worse." The message did not include any legal argument, only emotional disorientation, parental confusion, and a vague request for help. Hours later, a wellness practitioner affiliated with Harry's former Invictus Games circle contacted Kensington Palace and the Home Office directly, citing serious psychological distress and symptoms of chronic dissociation, fatigue, and identity dislocation. The report was submitted as a sealed memo to the Home Secretary and added to the Palace's internal case file. It marked the first official acknowledgement that Prince Harry himself may no longer be a stable custodial figure. A private High Royal Summit was convened at Clarence House. In attendance, Prince William, Princess Catherine, and King Charles III, who joined via secure teleconference from Sandringham. Though Charles had intentionally remained in the background throughout the legal campaign, this meeting marked his symbolic re-entry not as the executive of action, but as the final arbiter of royal precedent. The conversation, according to internal records, was heavy, and was the first to speak. This is no longer a family drama. It is a structural matter of legacy security. If we retreat now, we surrender the principle that royal children are born into protection, not content. Catherine reportedly added, "Harry's suffering is real, but it cannot override the institution's duty to the next generation." The tone in the room shifted, not adversarial, but final. Then came the turning point. William reached for a sealed envelope that had been held in reserve for 10 days. Inside was a document known only to the sovereign circle as the Heritage Sovereignty Clause, last activated during the post-II partition succession reforms of 1949. The clause is a constitutional instrument allowing the Crown to override biological parental claims in cases where both are deemed unfit, unavailable, or institutionally incompatible with royal duty and protection. King Charles signed the document. By doing so, he permanently authorized the transfer of guardian authority for Archie and Lilith to Princess Catherine, not as a temporary measure, but as a standing constitutional appointment, subject to no reversal without a sovereign act. That same night, a final statement was drafted for release. At Clarence House released what it described as the final public communication on the matter. The House of Windsor recognizes the complexity of modern family structures and the burden of public legacy. But it cannot allow children born of royal lineage to drift without structure, without continuity, and without care. From this day forward, all matters pertaining to Master Archie and Miss Lilith Diana shall be overseen by the designated guardian of royal succession. The statement ended with 7 words, a deliberate echo of Queen Elizabeth II language during the Sandringham Summit in 2020. No further commentary shall be issued. It was not just a press line. It was a boundary, a legal wall, a royal closure. By mid-morning California time, the impact was visible. According to sources close to the Sussex household, Prince Harry collapsed upon reading the formal release. He reportedly contacted a former SAS colleague, requesting a way back to the UK under sealed terms, separate from Meghan, and with no media exposure. The colleague declined to engage directly and referred the matter back to official diplomatic channels. Meanwhile, Meghan remained silent, but her legal team continued preparation for California judicial recognition challenges, claiming the Heritage Sovereignty Clause had no standing in U.S. family law. However, the damage was already done. Publishers began to withdraw interest in her memoir, The Crown Behind the Crib, citing reputational sensitivity and legal ambiguity. The RQL Foundation's primary operations were effectively frozen within Buckingham Palace. The reaction was not triumph, but solemn affirmation. The legal war was never about winning against Meghan or Harry. It was about winning for the children. One palace aide speaking anonymously said, "The crown didn't seize. It is safeguarded, and that music is the duty that outlives any scandal." Catherine resumed her private duties without media fanfare. Music, and returned to Sandringham to finalize a new draft of the Royal Child Integration Charter. Sophie began preparing a private welcome orientation for Archie and Lilith. But one line spoken by William during the final summit has now entered internal royal lore. "This isn't exile. This is a rescue." The courtroom battles had given way to a deeper, more complex undertaking. The reintegration of Archie Harrison and Lilith Diana into a royal framework that promised structure, protection, and dignity without publicity. The Heritage Sovereignty Clause was now fully active. Princess Catherine, as guardian of royal succession, assumed not only legal authority but operational command. Her approach, shaped over months of quiet preparation, was built around three foundational tenets: emotional rehabilitation, institutional normalization, protection from reputational volatility. But Catherine did not intend to raise heirs in a palace bubble. Her plan, ratified unanimously by the sovereign circle, was designed to give the children a life adjacent to royalty, not engulfed by it, life that allowed them to choose affiliation, not be defined by it. Archie and Lilith would not be cloistered behind palace gates. Instead, music. Catherine implemented a dual-track education strategy, blending royal heritage with international pedagogy. Archie, age 7, would be enrolled in a structured classroom setting in London by March 2026 within a program partnered with the British Council. Lilith, approaching 5, would begin early childhood education in Berkshire under a curriculum emphasizing civic engagement and emotional literacy. Seasonal residencies were approved in Victoria, British Columbia, allowing for transatlantic continuity without overexposure. Social interaction would be prioritized with children of civil servants, diplomats, and non-royal families to prevent premature social isolation or entitlement. An educational charter was finalized under the oversight of the Duchy of Cornwall, establishing a framework through 2040 music, with annual reviews conducted by an independent advisor on child welfare policy. Catherine, working alongside Princess and Duchess Sophie, also outlined a heritage reintroduction initiative. Rather than bombarding the children with royal expectations, this plan used cultural immersion through storytelling, landscape, music, and quiet ritual. Key features included quarterly heritage retreats at Balmoral and Sandringham, focusing on history, nature, and ancestral memory. One-on-one mentorship from Lady Louise Windsor, formerly appointed as cultural liaison, chosen for her calm demeanor and generational bridge. Private access to the Queen Elizabeth II Legacy Library, curated for age-appropriate exploration of royal lineage, global history, and civic leadership. The crown jewel of the immersion plan was a symbolic act, devised in private by King Charles before his retreat from direct involvement. Each child would receive a sealed letter handwritten and signed by the king to be opened on their 18th birthday. The content remains private, but palace aides described the letters as a personal invitation, not an obligation to reclaim full royal participation as adults should they choose. With legal risks still active in the United States, Princess Catherine's office, in coordination with the Privy Council, approved a supplemental guardianship protocol designated S26RC, which defined new safeguards. Catherine could delegate 3 operational guardians: Lady Louise Windsor, peer and cultural guide; Duchess Sophie, emotional logistics, daily care; an unnamed educational liaison to coordinate cross-border academic compliance and data privacy. Prince Edward was appointed as guardian liaison to the Home Office, handling urgent matters such as medical travel or legal coordination. A £12 million trust entirely separate from the sovereign grant was activated, named the Windsor Child Continuity Trust, to fund schooling, psychological counseling, emergency legal representation, security arrangements compliant with child protection standards.